Rusted.
Jorn, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, man. Yeah, great.
I,
Yeah, you too.
I am doing well. You know, it's weird. I was just thinking, I've been doing this probably as long as you have, and it's weird that we've never spoken before.
Yeah, but it was maybe meant to be. It's destiny.
No time like the present, right? And there's
Eventually,
so many things to cover in such a short amount of time, so I'm just going to jump
I
right
know.
into it. You just finished up the Avantasia tour. How did that go?
I was great. I mean, everybody was really, everybody's so sweet. I mean, nice people all along. Professional team, professional, agency is putting up with us. Me and crazy guys like me and Eric Martin. I mean, me and Michael Kiske or Bob Catley. All these different personalities together. It's like you just shower, shit, and shave, basically. When you're on tour. Where normally most bands today that don't have a platform or an established career, they have to do everything themselves and focus a lot on everything else outside the music. But the great thing with this tour was it's probably one of the best tours I've done. Even though the music is not always what I'm known for or what I prefer. It's just my parts are my parts and they're perfect for me. But then there are other sections of music that I just have to try to get into and blend in somehow because we're different singers or various singers and we just have to compromise a bit on things to be a part of this show. But it's a bit larger than our own bands in a way. Sells a lot of tickets and you have to compromise a bit more with things, but it's cool. I mean, it's as long as you spread your branches and you get to do your thing, then it's all right. I mean, I think the best with this tour was the reception from people. I come from the old scene, basic, and this type of German melodic metal is something that I'm not so familiar with that, to be honest, even though I've been singing on some of the albums and I know the guys and everything. But these guys some of them are a bit younger than some of us, and I just kind of try to adapt to everything, and it was really cool and it was a new experience to me, really. And
Right.
even though I did a couple of great tours in the past, this tour was exceptional because you could tell that you had some new generations out there, some younger people in the audience. That was positive, and the feedback that was insane. I mean, also like selling 4,000 or 5,000 tickets almost every show. Well, we did some smaller shows, but it was on a very good level all the time, most of the tour. And if we go back to play with our own bands, we would have to play a lot of different venues. Sometimes we play smaller venues, sometimes we play bigger venues. But with this thing, it was overall decent sized venues, great hotels. Everything was great. A great tour manager, great crew, very professional. Very German, though. I mean, I must say, because like Germans are known for being very accurate and very specific with everything. So, but that's healthy sometimes with guys like us. It's like we're
Keep you on task.
yeah. I mean, we're not the worst because we're getting up there now, and we were still young enough to rock out. But when you've been around for a long time, it's like you also have some fun and you don't take yourself too serious all the time, and that's the thing. I think me and Eric Martin and we had a great time, and Michael Kiske and Bob Catley and I mean all the guys actually in the band, but and of course Ronnie Atkins.
Right. I saw a lot of photos with you and Ronnie.
Well, the thing is, Ronnie is like I didn't even mention him until now because he's just he's like my neighbor in a way. I didn't know his real name is actually Paul.
Right.
So his So the thing is, I know him just to me it's like okay, Paul. That's how it's like my. I mean, we're from the same soil, We're from. It's like when you're from America. I mean, when you talk to somebody from Minnesota or Virginia or it doesn't matter if it's south or east. It's America, So it's the same here. I mean, when I hang out with Paul, it's like we're home. I'm home. It's like it's a different thing because you have so many things in common, those little things in life, everyday things that just makes a difference, and you know all the things. You know everything from the radio or the TV when you grew up. Same thing. You just connect in a different way.
It makes being on the road away more like you've got a little bit of home with you, so it's got to make it more comfortable to be on.
Yeah, and of course I understand Danish and he understands Norwegian, so we can speak our native languages and everything. So it's very comfortable when we're together. It's like sitting in your own country somewhere at some hotel or downtown having a beer.
Toby does such a fantastic job with Avantasia, and Ghost Lights is one of his best records yet. But I've always wondered, because you've done these things with him before, when he sends his ideas to you, do you instinctively know what he's looking for, or does he send you like a vocal scratch track, or give you what direction to make? Or
actually, I never asked him how he writes, to be honest. But I when he the funny thing is that and good thing is that he's one of the few people I've met that can actually decode perfectly the register that fits my voice, the perfect melody, even though he didn't listen to everything I've done. I'm sure he listened to a lot of stuff, and I know he was a big fan of Masterplan and some of the stuff I've done in the past. But I also know that he just has a certain instinct or talent for doing this. Maybe it's calculated. Maybe it's something he's just doing because he's just listening to some of the stuff he likes with the artists he likes to work with. And maybe, I don't know, it's just he's more like he's very professional in what he does, but at the same time he's just a guy from Germany. He's just a fan,
right,
of some of the people he's been working with. But in addition to that, he has a plan and a strategy. He knows exactly what he wants to do. So he's very professional and very German in that sense. He gets things done, and that it's very hard. He's a very hardworking guy, and that I admire him for that. Because I'm guys like me, for example. I'm too sloppy with many things. I'm picky with some things, but usually I'm picky with the artistic side of the business. When I look at like writing songs or lyrics or recording stuff, I'm very picky. I want to bring some soul and heart, and the feeling has to be right. But I think well, that's a good thing because I came from 60s, 70s and grew up with that, so it's natural. It was a different era, and I'm proud of that, and it's good to have that as a reference. But at the same time, I could use some of that Toby kind of thing. Sometimes and Toby as a singer, I don't know. He has a certain character that really makes him special. The way he does his thing is just. I usually see, I'm not comparing him to like Bob Dylan or anybody. I'm just saying that the way he sounds is just unique in the same way like some of these guys that we grew up with. Some of these people that didn't necessarily have the most technical, great sounding voice, but
it worked for what they did.
Yeah, there's something with the sound and the expression that makes him really unique, and one of a kind. So. But, he has that other thing, might not always be as emotional all the time. And he might have that certain German, direct thing going, or wanting to be accurate and always considering things. While guys like me would, be too focused on the feeling and the heart of a song maybe sometimes. And, I would say, oh, I want to stretch out this note, and then we will... the crowd will go wild, and Toby would say, no, it's not right. We should just stick to the whole program and what we've planned. The set list should be like it is, and we should not extend anything, because I think we already have parts where the crowd can sing, and he's always having, giving things that kind of overview, which is a very good quality. And I think that's also a part of the reasons why. Or the reason why the success with this, it's a music genre or a style that you would not really expect to have such a commercial success.
Right.
And at least when I grew up, listening to, for example, Halloween and German power metal in general, that was like something different. It was original, yes, and very German, but it was, not for everyone in a way. So it was not the mainstream thing. And now you go on stage and you play like 10, 12-minute songs, and people know all the words, and they're totally crazy. And I'm suddenly there singing some kind of Schlager kind of chorus or like a hymn or something, something a bit outside my box in a way, or my bubble. I think Eric Martin. I think he thinks the same. I think he loves to do this and be a part of it like me, but at the same time it's kind of you have to kind of pinch your arm and you have to look at everything and say, well, what's going on? Because I mean we're getting older, we're still strong and all that. It's like everybody is. It's like my parents. They belong to their time and their era, and that's what you refer to. And now you have these people that are like 10 years or 15, 20 years younger than you that just they do something totally different, and you just sometimes wonder, that's not the way to do it. But then you see the reception from people, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? Something is changing in the business, and in many ways, Avantasia is really good for all of us. It's really good. It gives us an opportunity to still be around and to be relevant and to connect with some new people, younger generations growing up now. I saw a lot of young people in the audience every show. Just like 5 years ago, I would sometimes think when I was on stage with my band, I would think, well, a lot of people with high foreheads, about to get bald, and I was a bit worried. I was thinking, what's going on? We got to do something. But then, doing this now is just, of course, I'm not saying that the style of music that we represent is outdated. I'm just saying that it's kind of important to kind of include the fact that new generations are coming, and if you want to be a part of the business and the rock and metal scene till you get older then you have to really accept the changes and adapt with the changes in a positive way, and try and do your thing, but at the same time, if you only want to stick to that old school way of thinking, you're never going to succeed, or you're never going to have a long career. So that's it's going to get smaller and smaller unless you adapt a bit. So
true.
You can always do your own albums, and you can always do something very idealistic and personal to you and your generation. Right. And you get the feedback from the right people and all that. But and of course some younger people, but in the big picture you have to look at the kids and what's going on with the new generations. That's the whole key to success, I think. And you have some exceptions when you look at some bands like AC/DC, Black Sabbath and those, but they just had such a big impact on everything when technology was at an early stage. When first time you had to, it's like with Jimi Hendrix with the electric guitar. It's like first people that started to experiment with that technology coming from the 50s and the 40s. It was like a totally new thing, and I think they gained a lot of. It was like a Hiroshima bomb, It's like because you didn't have maybe you had in the States a lot of TV channels and stuff, but most parts of the world didn't have tons of TV channels and radio stations. You only had maybe a couple of. You have like in England you had BBC One and BBC Two probably or something. That's it. If you made it to the charts and entered some kind of important list, you would be included on Top of the Pops, and if you got to play your song there, you made it. Everybody would watch it, I mean, now if you play on a talk show in America or even here in Norway or in Germany or anywhere, do you really think that the most of the people in America that watches TV will see you? Not really.
No.
So you don't have the same impact. Somebody will be on a different TV channel. Somebody won't even watch TV, and others will be on the internet. So it's you don't get to center or to spread the same amount of publicity with what you do. It was a different time, and I think back then also the criteria for quality or for getting a record deal was much different. For being allowed to release an album and have a career, you had to have the Elvis factor. You had to be a good performer. You have to be a craftsman,
right,
in every way.
That segues very nicely into the new record, Heavy Rock Radio, which comes out on June 3rd, because that really does span the generations. And it's an album packed with covers from some of the artists who've inspired you throughout the years. And you made some choices fans might expect, but you also have some real wild cards in there. Frida, Paul Stanley, Kate Bush, John Farnham. Tell us about Heavy Rock Radio and how you put that album together.
Well, first I had 40, 50 songs that I really liked and I still love. And then I had to pick 12, 15 for the record. And I just thought, we are in a time now where you don't have to do one style all the time. You can actually create some variety and people will actually accept it and they will take it as something more interesting than if you just do like a record of only songs by artists like Kate Bush. And, if you do like, I could do like Björk or I could do, only female artists, and it would be cool. But I think the way of thinking was a bit different now, because maybe that would work 20 years ago, in a way. But I think now it was more about showing the variety of styles and artists that influenced me in general. I had from Kate Bush, I had like 3-4 songs that I wanted to do. I chose Running Up That Hill basically because the song I wrote in 2006 for an album called The Duke, a song called Black Song. That song was actually influenced by Running Up That Hill. So to begin with, we wanted to record a cover version of Running Up That Hill, but what actually happened was that I started, thinking about a lyric, and then we were sitting down, me and my guitarist at the time, and we were fooling around with the arrangements for Running Up That Hill, but then we ended up writing Black Song instead. So it kind of took a different turn, and now I chose Running Up That Hill basically because of that, and I also thought it would fit the title of the record. It's one of the most commercial songs by Kate Bush, and radio is also about that. To have something that's accessible to people. And Kate Bush is a very artistic person. She has a lot of intricate songs with deep meanings, and then it's like I usually say, it's not for the faint-hearted in a way. You have to. It's a very small. She's a big artist, but she's also creating music for a very selective audience.
Right.
And you only have a few songs like Babushka and Running Up That Hill and Wuthering Heights and stuff. That there's a few tracks that stand out as being more commercial and But I think if you look at the songs from the beginning, they are not really that commercial either. They were pushed hard, and quality of the recordings are great, productions are great. There's a lot of feeling in the performance, a lot of heart in it. So
I was gonna say, I remember when I was a kid, I used to listen to pop songs in my head, but because I was a rocker, I would always in my mind add all these heavy riffs and everything, and that's sort of like what you've done here, is taken a lot of those classics and just amped them up.
Yeah, and I just I love songs. I heard some guitar stuff in my head when listening to the originals, and I always thought, well, that song would be cool, up tempo, and if you would, play the guitar this way or that way, that could be really cool. And we basically just tried it, just tried to find a guitar structure, making it more a rock recipe trying to do something with guitars, bass, and drums and vocals that were that were strong. It was a small challenge, but it's actually not difficult when you love the song and you understand the whole expression and the lyric and everything. That is a kind of it's more about taking the time to do it, and decoding the details. So some songs were more time consuming than others. I Know There's Something Going On was really easy because that song sounds almost like it was meant to be a heavy rock tune from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Sounds like Russ Ballard wrote the song with rock or hard rock in his mind, Mm-hmm. It's just that it feels a bit like when Phil Collins came into the picture and was, becoming the producer of Anne-Frid Lyngstad's record. And it's kind of, I just felt that, okay, they're going to try and do some kind of, Genesis kind of recipe here, or try to find some. I mean, he played drums on the song. He did the same kind of approach with everything, both the playing and the production, like he did with the Mama and In the Air Tonight on that song, because so it was already done before. So you can tell that they tried to go in a different direction, and they already knew which approach. So I think and also at the time it was new with the new technology that started to develop in the early 80s. I mean, it was all very exciting, and everybody wanted to move into the 80s with that new thing. I mean, you saw that with many bands. You saw, I mean, Queen coming from Bohemian Rhapsody, Bicycle Race, and all these songs. I mean, being like a more experimental symphonic rock band,
right?
And then suddenly you have I Want to Break Free and The Great Pretender and Radio Gaga. So it's kind of suddenly you cross over. I mean, you saw the same with David Bowie. Really, it's changing from being what he used to be, and of course it's natural. Some people were leading the rock and roll life, and there were like a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll back then. So eventually you have to either jump off the wagon or you have to adapt to something new, right, and try to blend in somehow. I think some of the bands managed to do that and had immense success from it. But I think some of these songs were originally intended to be much more heavy or much more hard rocking than
right,
than what the outcome would be on some of these records. Because that's what I felt always with that song. It's a very good song, very simple message. I mean, the cleverness with that song is that it's so simple, but yet so artistic and unique sounding. Even without the production, the whole structure of the song, the way the vocal melody, navigates, if I can use that word, through the song. It's very simple, but it's so brilliant. I never heard any. I mean, can you tell me any song in history that that reminds you of that song? I can't. It's only that song. Most songs you can draw a parallel. With most songs you can draw a parallel to other songs. Oh, it's a bit like that, or it reminds me of a bit like. You can always compare to something, or you find some kind of structure in the song that reminds you of something. But with that song, I just felt that, Russ, you wrote something that nobody wrote before. This is and it's how could you do it? You just hit the nail on the head. It's so simple, and then that combination with the Phil on drums,
right,
and Frida's vocals, that was just the top of the cake. It was the cream of the cake. It was just. And I think that was a good thing about those days. People would, the right people would come together and, create a band, or they would, record a record or work together. So I think we see less of that today. That's something that kind of annoys me a bit, to see some of these great players not being as, critical anymore towards who they work with. Or I'm not saying you shouldn't be open to work with a lot of people. I'm going to say that there are a few players that now, you have this great drummer and you have the great guitar player and maybe even a bass player, but then you have a singer that doesn't really fit the band,
There was more magic and nuance back then, I think, and I think we've lost some of that.
And yeah, it's actually a bit frustrating when you belong to my generation, at least. If you're 40 or 50, or in between.
No, I'm right there with you.
Then it's you have the experience and you kind of look at your life and you know what you like, what you don't like. But you also note all these new sterile, cold productions that come out, prog metal that sound the same. Everybody sings in the same style. They're not really changing in any way. It's like one recipe is the recipe for making an album or for making a video. Or it's a bit like these goth metal chicks today. No offense, some of them are really good, but if you look at some of these bands, some are good, but a lot of them are just kind of making records at home and they make a video, or maybe they even have a good video, because technology can help you in so many ways these days. So, but of course, you have some artists that really make a point out of everything, and they have cool videos, they have a cool front woman or a guy. Like what's it called? In This Moment, the American act. That's pretty good. I mean, I think that's something that she's very strong. The singer, she's very talented as well. But then again, it's bands that depend on the image and depend on. It was cool once to have some bands like Kiss and those bands that would use the image and stuff. But I think But they also had a certain quality. They didn't have to shock. They could shock people with, Gene could shock with his tongue or and stuff. But and Paul could be, feminine and dance around and all that stuff. But I think in general there was a certain honesty in the performance. When Paul would sing, he would. Well, he still is, a great guy, great frontman. So I think, it was the quality was so good. It was coming from the heart, and you can hear that. It's very easy. People might say that, oh, that's just the image. That's just it's just fabricated. It's just business. Well, of course, parts of this industry is about the business, but it's also very important. It's a very important combination to combine that with the quality, because without the quality, you doesn't help if you know business or if you're clever with your ideas. You only get to a certain point and you're gonna lose. So you have to have some genuine vision about where you want to go, and you have to be a musician somehow, a true musician from the inside, and you have to bring some heart and soul to the performance, or else you will not make it. And well, at least that's what it was like in the old days, and
right.
Not as much anymore, at least not in metal and hard rock. But I think it's still dominating parts of the world or the music scene. Right. Like, for example, country music. If you're not a good singer, I'm not sure if you will have a great career in Nashville. You have to be good. You might get the stamp that you're not a true country artist and you're too poppy or whatever. It's been the discussion since the 90s about the development of the country scene in the US and stuff. But the thing is, you're not the real country deal or whatever. But most of these, even if you call like Taylor Swift or whoever, that came later, it's still very, very talented people that sing with a great tone and with a great spirit and performing with the heart, and that's a skill. I mean, just to go on stage before millions of people and perform and do that calm and relaxed and pull it off, that's in itself, it's a gift and a rare skill, because most people would shit in their pants when they when they go direct on TV or they have to deliver the goods, at a certain time, and that's what you don't really consider when you when people like slam artists for the style or the wrong direction or whatever, and that's what I mean. It's like guys like Paul Stanley, for example, such a great singer. Whatever he's doing today, I don't know. I haven't followed up on everything, but I just see guys like him behind all that, image and imagery or whatever. He is so unique. He's one of the greatest singers that we have, or at least he used to be, and his tone is really unique. And, if you look at all these songs, when you listen to them, regardless of style, if you listen to, even in pop, some of the pop songs, if you listen to Forever, if you listen to the ballads, if you listen to like Shandy and all this, if you listen to that character, that's one of a kind. It's really unique. It's nothing to do with the masks or with the, that's just a bonus, the way I see it. The business comes as a bonus, and it's important that we make money from the business, or else we won't survive. And some people get too greedy, but in the big picture, I think some of these people that we sometimes tend to undermine are really, really unique, and I think he's really one of the best singers that we've had in rock.
Coming up from our generation, there were so many vocalists, and you have a number of them on this album: the Freddie Mercurys, the Paul Stanley, the Bruce Dickinson, that had very unique, distinct voices, and everybody these days sounds sort of like a clone. But talking about Paul Stanley for a moment, that takes me to one of my other questions I had for you. The album is made up of songs that have inspired you over the years and helped forge your own path, yet you chose a recent Paul Stanley solo song, you chose a recent Iron Maiden song, which suggests that even newer music, at least by artists who have those talents, continue to inspire and guide you. Is that accurate?
Well, I still love these artists, and if I hear a good song, it's a good song. I didn't pick the songs because they were, necessarily famous songs. There are songs by or co-written by Paul Stanley, or even not written by him at all, that he did with Kiss. That's much more popular or famous than Live to Win, even though I know it was on South Park and it had a certain success in the US. But if you compare it to some of the stuff that happened in the past, I guess this, at least not here in Europe, that song was like, no, I don't think many people even knew that Paul Stanley released that record.
Right.
Sometimes it's a big difference between the US and Europe. Some artists you don't even know released the record, but then it might be really popular in the States. So, and then you had a time before. It's like, in the old days, Unmasked by Kiss. That's probably it's one of my favorite Kiss albums, and it's the record that flopped. That's what I read and that's what I heard, but it's the record that sold the least out of most of the, or maybe all the Kiss albums. But what I actually remember here in Scandinavia, it was the opposite. When Unmasked came out, people went crazy. Shandy was on the radio all the time. It was crazy, both in Norway and Sweden, Denmark. Same thing in Germany, I think. And people were, there was a rumor that these guys would, remove their masks and nobody knew their faces. And I remember it was a lot of things going on, rumors and everything. And as a fan, it's strange, when I heard a song like "Is That You," that's not even written by Kiss. I think it's some other guy wrote that song. But great song. When I heard that record and put that on that album, the first song came on and it's like "Is That You" was like really rocking. I just thought, my God, this is probably some of the greatest stuff I've ever heard. Back then. And I had the same feeling with other records, like, for example, the Foreigner 4 album with Jukebox Hero and Urgent and all those songs, Woman in Black. Great songs. And I think, Mutt Lange produced that record. The thing is, when sometimes an album doesn't really, make it big to begin with, but then 5 years or 10 years or 20 years later, the album is classic, and everybody thinks it's one of the greatest songs ever. So I think that's what we've seen with many bands, and regarding Paul Stanley and Kiss, I think Unmasked was my favorite record. But then again, listening to some of the solo records they did in the past, the Peter Criss record, I like some of the songs there, Ace Frehley stuff. I like everything about that band, really. Just some songs were a bit too much for me once, every now and then. But some of the songs that were not too much teenage focused. These songs, some of these songs are really, classics, strong songs that will stand the test of time, and only these guys could make it sound like that. And same with Ace Frehley and what he's been doing. He has this kind of sound, not just his playing, it's his voice as well when he sings. It might not always be beautiful, but it's it's this kind of attitude and this sound that it just grabs you.
And he just did his own covers album.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's cool. I love his record. What did he do? He did that song. He did Fox on the Run, right?
Right.
That was really good, I think. And this version of this song, New York song.
New York, another Russ Ballard song. New York
yeah. Great. I think that record was really good. I think Ace did a really good record, and that record shows how important he is for those records back in the day. How important he was for Kiss, and they all were. Because they were all individual, strong craftsmen in a way, and that's what we don't see too often anymore. And that's what we see with all these bands of that era. Black Sabbath, same thing, AC/DC. You partly see that with Maiden as well. It's been a bit changing the lineup and people going in and out and stuff. But it's the same thing. Who plays like Steve Harris or like Nico McBrain, who plays the drums like that. It's a certain, who plays like Geezer Butler, who plays the guitar like Tony Iommi, and you have that kind of, not to dwell on the past and what has been, but to recognize and acknowledge true quality and individual strong artists. There was a time when we would know the names of everybody in the band.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we would be fans of everyone because they were just great individual players. They played an important role. Today, you might know the name of the band and the singer, and that's it. Very often you don't even know the names of the people playing in the band.
Oh, and they change often.
Yeah, or they don't have any expression or attitude that you can really, relate to, or that you get, amazed by or fascinated by.
So on this album, you tackled some very unique and amazing vocalists, and you guys as a whole, as a band, did a fantastic job of paying respect and tribute. Was there a song, though, that was perhaps more difficult to cover than any of the others in terms of doing justice to the song and the original vocalist?
I think the easiest songs were like Live to Win, Running Up the Hill, I Know There's Something Going On, Final Frontier. Die Young is pretty easy. It's just, natural stuff. And these songs, I get to do what I normally do in a way. So it's, as long as it's in the right key and the right, it's just simple to sing. But songs like, Killer Queen, for example, I thought, I had an idea for that, and I thought, well, I can do that in a more like, not as feminine and with less backups, and make it more like a more male sounding song. I mean, no offense against, Freddie and everything. It's just the way he sings it is a bit feminine on the original. Great feeling and everything, but it's more operatic. And I just wanted to make it a bit more rock and roll, but still, trying to keep that original feel a bit, So that was actually a challenge, because I thought it would be pretty easy, because I wanted to do the same as I did on, for the Dracula album, when we wrote a song called Swing of Death, which is the title track of the album, which has that kind of vibe. it's a bit that kind of Queen or Killer Queen kind of vibe, 20s feel, 30s feel to it. And I thought, I'll do the same thing. So that would fit because that's a bit, Freddie Mercury-ish in a way. But it was actually really difficult to sing that song. And in the end, I'm not sure if I'm 100% happy with the outcome. To be honest, it's just I think it's pretty good. But sometimes the original is the original, and you just have to realize that it's like when you write your own songs, and you just sometimes realize that some songs are just you just added something personal, something magical to what you did, and you just know that there probably won't be many people that can do it after you, So and it's the genuine thing happening, and I think I realized that with the Killer Queen. I'm still happy with the recording. I think it sounds great, and it's a great alternative to the original version. If in a way, that's how I see it. It's cool to have an alternative when you've heard the original over and over for years. It's great to hear a good quality alternative version that can bring some fresh kind of element to the whole listening experience. So that's all. So when that's said, I'm saying, the outcome is pretty good, but I wasn't 100%. But that's because I'm picky, It's my wife says, what's wrong with you? It sounds great. Yeah, well, thank you. I said, but I still think that I could have done it better, So anyway, but that song was difficult. Other songs on the album, I actually Rev on the Red Line. That's a difficult song to sing. Lou Graham's vocal abilities, they are out of this world. At least they used to be back then when when we played with Foreigner and stuff. This was I still heard him singing some of the old songs. I mean, it's still that Graham voice, Some people just have a certain thing there, and he has it. And I didn't really want to copy his voice or his sound, because that's, I try to do my own thing. But some songs, like Killer Queen, for example, they are, you can't really, they are so, how should I put it, forged already. It's like they are hammered in stone. You can't really change them. You can you can be true to the original, but you can't really make it harder or softer or anything. It's just so good originally that an alternative version might work, but you cannot really compete with anything, which in this case was not the intention. But sometimes you get the feeling that you want to make a difference, with the song. You want to prove to yourself that you can actually do your own version of it and make it come out outstanding. And sometimes theory don't work practically. But then again, with experience, you can still pull through and make sure that you can live with the result in the end, and you can be proud of the record and the outcome. But some songs are, of course, stronger than others, and I think that was a couple of those. The three most difficult songs was, I think, Killer Queen, Rev on the Red Line, and also The Voice, originally recorded by John Farnham.
Higher register for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's it's just, you think you can just go for it and sing it because you have a range or you have a powerful voice. But then you realize that some songs cannot be altered too much, because if you sing them too hard, or if you approach the song with your style, it suddenly doesn't work. You have to hold back, and you realize that, wow, there's a certain dynamics to this song and a certain feeling that even with more heavy guitars and this new arrangement, I still have to hold back, and I have to find that other kind of dynamic.
Right, rein it in a bit.
Feeling, yeah. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just you don't really experience it till you actually sing it. And when you're in the studio doing it, you might sit in the living room or in the rehearsal room or whatever. whatever, and you might, sing it, you have 2 beers and you feel great and you just hum it or you sing it and everybody says, oh my God, you're going to sing that great, Jorn, it's going to be great. But then, and you convince yourself that this is going to be perfect, and then you enter the studio and you really struggle and you have a hard time actually pulling it off,
Okay, so
right?
The last question before we run out of here, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it earlier, it was our album of the year that we chose at Metalholic, the Dracula album, Swing of Death, that you did with Tron.
Yeah,
fantastic record. Just real quick,
thanks.
How did that whole project come together with you and Tron?
Well, it's actually, it was actually Tron that had the original idea to begin with. He had this idea to do a vampire concept about this touring band of vampires. Actually, it was pretty funny but still pretty cool. This band that consisting of vampires that went on tour, traveling the world, picking their victims in various cities, and it's because they were like trying to find a way to stay alive as vampires. How do we do that without in these modern times without being caught? So that was the original idea that he had. And so he had a couple of demos that he sent me with some music. And the first thought that struck me was that idea that he mentioned was kind of, it was cool, but I felt it was a bit outdated because we already had all these modern vampire stories in this TV series like Twilight, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and movies and everything. So I thought that kind of, you know what I mean? The guy looking like James Dean with the vampire teeth, sharp teeth. That's kind of like we've seen there. It's like been there, done that. And I thought maybe if that idea was done in 2000 and early millennium, it could have worked. But then again, this idea was something that it didn't happen in a way till later. So. Then I thought, now we're in 2012, or that's when we started working on it. So together. Then I thought, why not go back and look at the original Dracula story? Because I haven't heard anything about that story, not in movies or music, since Gary Oldman and Francis Ford Coppola did that movie. So, and I thought, 92 was it? Yeah, it was really, and I thought, it's actually now in the middle of all these modern vampire series on TV and stuff. I thought it's actually more original to dig into the original Bram Stoker story. So I read in the book, and I watched a couple of movies, including the movie with the Gary Oldman and also another movie with the actor Klaus Kinski,
right,
and director Werner Herzog. A movie called Nosferatu from 1979. And I just, thought that, okay, how would it be how would it feel to be inside the Dracula's head, to be be a part of his mind, and to, if you were, as a human, if you were Dracula, trying to see it from that perspective, living forever, everybody's dying around you. I mean, you don't actually get the variation in your diet as well, It's like craving blood every day, and eventually it must be boring, And I was thinking, how would all these inner demons behave, And that must be like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing going on, and we see this or parts of this already in the movie with Gary Oldman, how he's kind of insecure sometimes and. He gets a bit soft, and then he's suddenly back on track with his Dracula evilness or demonic kind of thing, And so, and also looking at watching this old movie Nosferatu, some of the same things are happening. Great actor, that guy. So
well, it turned out brilliantly, and. I could talk to you for hours on end, my friend.
Yeah.
So let's do this again. Let's do this again soon. I know there's a new album coming out in 2017, so we'll get together and talk about that. I will let you get out of here, but the new album, June 3rd, Heavy Rock Radio, fantastic. Jorn Lande, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man.